So, David Hunter Bishop is a retired journalist from Hawaii who left his retirement recliner 4 years ago for a rewarding new life as a full-time world traveler. Born and raised in Paulsboro, New Jersey, he attended the U.S. Naval Academy and earned a degree in American Studies in 1975 from Temple University in Philadelphia. He started his journalism career in New Jersey and continued it in Southern California. He moved to Hawaii, where he raised a family and enjoyed a 27-year career at the Hawaii Tribune Herald newspaper in Hilo. He retired in 2013, finding little satisfaction in retirement. He started a 4-year round-the-world journey in August 2016. And I would love for David to now unmute himself and share his story with you.
Thanks, Erica. I really appreciate the introduction, and I'm thrilled to be here in the company of so many presenters that you've had on who are so well versed and qualified in travel. I feel like a piker here. But I really don't. What I have to offer though is a niche in travel that is somewhat unique, as the title says, retirement on the road, senior solo adventure traveler. I started, like you said, 4 years ago. I feel like I'm still on the road, even despite the pandemic, since I was in self-isolation in Mexico, and then from March until about August, and then I moved from there to Hawaii, where I'm coming to you from now. And I have lots of good friends here since I was here for 27 years, and they are putting me up, or putting up with me here in in Hawaii. So I want to keep the presentation fairly short. I don't want to go into too much detail because I know there are a lot of people out there who have tuned in. I want to welcome everybody and thank you for coming to the presentation. It's really gratifying to do this. And you probably have a lot of questions, so I want to reserve a lot of time for questions. I really appreciate you giving you what you want out of this presentation, rather than me just rambling on forever about what I've done. I've got a lot to talk about. I've done quite a bit, but I'll get started now, laying this out for you, and start with perhaps my journalism career. I was a journalist in Hawaii, retired in 2013, and as Erica said, I was not enamored with the retirement life. There was so much, I was cutting grass at the house and doing all those household chores and things that really weren't of interest to me, and so I was finding out how boring retirement could be. I played golf and I had a lot of friends, but you sit around with your friends, you're telling the same old stories over and over. So I knew I needed to do something else with my life, and I didn't quite know what to do, but I did a lot of leaning back in the recliner with the remote control, flicking through the channels late at night, and I was watching travel videos, and I saw one from Guatemala, from San Francisco Alto near Quetzaltenango, if people are familiar with that, and it's on a plateau at about 8,500 feet, and there was every Friday they have an animal market. It's huge, it's colorful, it's unbelievable. And I saw the video of that and I thought to myself, geez, if I ever traveled, that's the kind of place I'd like to go see. And boom, that was my epiphany. Right then and there, I said, I can do that. I have everything I need to do that. I've got the money. I had a retirement pension plus Social Security. I had the time, and I had the everything I needed to get going. So my sons were adults, and I was living in this big house in the rainforest in Hawaii, and I watched the YouTube, and it all clicked, and so that's when I took off. Um, the preparations to do that though took 8 months. I was 8 months in trying to put everything in place. I had to get rid of my house, I get rid of my house, and I did that through the divorce. My wife wanted the house, I didn't want it, and so I said, here, you take it, and with all the furnishing, so I didn't have to get rid of that stuff. But I sold my truck. I got some money for that. I bought gear, backpacks, and things, and uh, uh, I had to finalize the divorce and transfer the ownership of the house from two names to one, and do all that kind of stuff, and just sort of get my mind in gear for a whole new life. Um, and because once you start thinking about traveling, that's all you think about, and that's all I thought about was for 8 months was traveling, how I was going to do this, what kind of person I was going to be on the road, and um, it was that in itself was quite an adventure to feel the change to feel the changes happening inside me. For all my life, I'd done a fair amount of traveling, but I never realized that I had that inside me. It growing up as a kid in New Jersey, southern New Jersey, it was an industrial uh, town, working class community. It was situated right on the Delaware River, across from the Philadelphia International Airport. So there was a lot of pollution in the town. But the fortunate thing about growing up there was my parents gave me a long leash to do all kinds of things that were uh, uh, adventurous, and I took advantage of that. My friends and I were my friends were the same way, and we did a lot of things. We'd take our bicycles all over South Jersey, and we'd camp and hike and do all sorts of things. I took that to the Naval Academy, where I was after high school. I was appointed a midshipman at the United States Naval Academy. I was fairly good in sports, and I was a good student, and so that my family was really proud that I did that. But I found quickly that naval life wasn't for me either. So the best thing, the only really good thing about being in the Naval Academy for 18 months was the midshipman cruise in the first summer we were there. It was we got on an old World War II ship that sailed from San Diego to Auckland, New Zealand, Sydney, Australia, and back to Pearl Harbor, where we got leave to go to Waikiki, and we got leave in Sydney. And I was really in awe of the opportunity to just travel around these places on my own, and walk the streets of Auckland and see the sights in Sydney, and enjoy the beaches in Waikiki. And but then from there, I came back to California, and fortunately, a childhood friend, one of my best and oldest friends from New Jersey, met me in San Diego, and we toured around Southern California for 3 weeks, and that was a grand time. I'm 19 years old with cash in my pocket, and a sailor, and we really had a good time, you can imagine. Coming back to New Jersey, I got a job at uh, a chain of weekly newspapers. I was doing some freelance work, and uh, but before that, I was at Temple University. I missed that part. I went from the United States Naval Academy, which I resigned after 18 months, and went to Temple University in Philadelphia. And there I got through on a work study program with the Independence National Historic Park in Philadelphia, which has the Liberty Bell and Congress Hall, and it's actually considered America's birthplace. I was a tour guide. I gave tours of the Liberty Bell primarily, and the other historic buildings, and that allowed me the opportunity to talk to tourists from around the world. Thousands every day took those tours, and that was that was really interesting, and I know that had a large part in developing the wanderlust inside me. And when that was over, that's when I got the newspaper job, and that's when and at that time I was successful at the newspaper job. I became the editor there in fairly short time. And on a whim, I applied for a Rotary Club International group study exchange, and was selected to go. And that was like a dream trip. It was 6 weeks to again to New Zealand, and we spent the time touring the North Island. We came back to through Fiji and stopped there for a week or so. I forget exactly how long, and then again back to Hawaii, where we actually we were dropped off, and then I got another flight back from Hawaii to New Jersey, and that that's sort of that instilled the travel, the urge to travel in me even more. When I got back to my job at the newspaper, my publisher and I got into a sort of a disagreement about an editorial I wanted to run, and so we ended up saying, listen, I'm just I told him I'm just going to leave. Forget it. So my girlfriend at the time and I loaded up her car. We sold mine, loaded up her car with everything that fit. We sold everything we owned that was left over. And we took a road trip cross country from New Jersey to Southern California, where we stayed, where we ended up in Laguna Beach. And I got a job at a little newspaper, a weekly community newspaper in Laguna Beach called the Tides and Times. And that was a real good fun experience. We were there for 9 years, and during that time, I met a guy named Chet, who was who was a Vietnam vet. He owned a hostel in Belize, in southern Belize, in the Toledo district, and he invited us down there. So we went down there, spent a 2-week vacation in southern Belize, and we just fell in love with it. We were living in the rainforest with the Garifuna people, and who are the original descendants of that area, and we fell in love with it. We fell in love with the tropical climate and all of that. So when we got back to California, we started looking around for someplace else to go. I found a small ad in the Los Angeles Times for an editor of a magazine on Maui. I applied for that. I got that. I've had a lot of luck in my career, so we went to Maui. And that magazine, well, it was a so-so job. And fortunately, it folded in 15 months. And I started looking for another job in Hawaii. And fortunately, I had a contact who put me in touch with the editor of the Hawaii Tribune Herald. And there I got a job, and I worked there for 27 years. During that time, my girlfriend, who came cross country with me, and I got married, and we had two children, 2 sons, and they're, of course, now they're both grown adults living on their own, independent, very successful, and I'm very happy about that. But let's see, we're in. And so that's essentially during that time I had 2 other trips during that time. That's what I wanted to tell you. I had 2 trips, one to Fukuoka, Japan. And this is kind of funny. Carmela in the flight presentation earlier mentioned the fact that Americans not many Americans have passports. I was the only one in my newsroom who had a passport. I raised my hand when the editor said, "Who has one?" I was the only one to raise my hand. So I got a free trip. It was a long weekend in Fukuoka, Japan. It was a promotional flight from Hawaiian Airlines. They so it was a lot of fun. So that was another trip that I took, and the other trip was not so happy. My brother was ill in Germany, so I went to see him and take care of him for a while. And I'd never been to Germany, and I didn't know the language, so that was quite an adventure, and I got a lot of airline experience coming back when my flight my first flight in Frankfurt was delayed by weather, and I missed my next flight in London, and I was stuck there in Heathrow Airport. It was so crowded, I couldn't believe it, like wall to wall, shoulder to shoulder people, and I had to get another flight back to Hawaii from London, and eventually, after standing in long lines for about 12 hours, I got a flight across the over the Arctic Circle to uh, uh, Tokyo, Japan, and then from Tokyo, had to get another flight back to Hawaii. But it all worked out. But it was really an eye-opening experience about the adventures of travel and what can happen. And things change all the time. You never you never know what's going to happen. Excuse me a moment. So 27 years in Hawaii, and thought I'd had it made. I'd retire in paradise and everything would be hunky dory, but it wasn't. I was really disenchanted with the life, and as I said before, I watched that YouTube video, and I started planning to go. And on August 1, 2016, I was on my way. First I flew to New York City, and started traveling down the coast to my hometown. Met my old friends again, and stopped in a few other places that were important to me. And I came down by. I did that. I did from New York to Miami. I went by train and bus and rental car. And so it was a really good trip, and ended up in Miami, where I um, uh, found a local diner called the S&S Diner, which was really a classic kind of place, the kind of place where the waitresses will, keep filling your coffee cup up and call you honey and all that kind of thing. And all during the planning stages of this trip, I always wondered what kind of person I wanted to be as a traveler, and and really who I am, how I got to that place in life. So I couldn't I had really hard time articulating that. And then on the wall of this diner, in Miami, in between all of the posters on the walls of films and athletes and all kinds of things like that, was this little cockeyed sign with these 14 sayings on there, recommendations about how to be a good person. I looked at that, and immediately I knew that was it. That's that's what I wanted to do. That's who I wanted to be. And so you can see them in this slide. Be yourself, take chances, create happiness, be passionate, fall in love, on and on, 14 of them. And I still carry that around and refer to it often. And I think everybody who travels ought to do that sort of thing. Find out, think deeply about who you are and the kind of person you want to be. When you go to a foreign country and you're in the home of somebody else's culture, how do you want to act? So that was important to me. So then, once I got to Guatemala, I stayed in I got a homestay program with a Spanish language school. I wanted to learn the language. I had a little bit in high school, but this really helped me out. I was able to get around Spanish-speaking countries after doing that, and the homestay was really good. Living with local people and their culture like that, and I was hooked. So I started traveling around. Stayed in Guatemala for a while, and you can see the list of countries. I don't count countries so much as just as evaluate them in terms of the quality of the experience there. I stay as long as I feel it's important to me. And so I've really, a modest amount of countries, give or 20 or so, give or take. I keep coming up with a different number every time I count, I think. But uh, I enjoyed every one of them. When people ask, what's your favorite country, I can't say. It's difficult to say. I enjoyed every one of them. So um, what? So when now we, and I, I talk about being a senior solo adventure traveler. Um, and so, you might wonder, what is he talking about? What is that? It's, of course, it's traveling alone. And at age 62, it's probably the age begins when you can start collecting Social Security. And adventures, I see adventures. I thought about this a lot. Adventures can take any kind of form. You can do things that get the adrenaline pumping. I didn't do this, but biking down Death Road in the mountains of Bolivia sounded like an exciting idea to me. But I kind of had second thoughts about that for a while. And I also couldn't get into the country of Bolivia for reasons I won't explain here. But it can also be a quiet pilgrimage of inner peace such as on Spain's Camino de Santiago. And I think I didn't change that on this slide. It's Camino de Santiago, not Real. And but essentially, ultimately, the adventure is to me is the achievement of any physical or mental goal that produces a deep personal satisfaction. That's adventure. And down at the bottom here is I choose to have no home base, and that's true. I don't have a home base. I still don't. I never have while I've traveled. I don't have a permanent address. I don't have any place to really go back to. I just move on from place to place. One of my favorite quotes is from Bruce Lee, the martial artist and actor and celebrity. He said that things move to live. The more they move, the stronger they get. And that meant a lot to me. So that was my philosophy. Just keep moving uh, and do it as you see fit. Traveling solo I found is also something I really like rather than traveling in groups. I don't travel in groups. Sometimes I traveled for I think 51 months now, and all but 2 of them I've traveled solo. Once I traveled with my son, who came with me, and we went through all around Peru, hiking in the Andes, and we had a wonderful time for a month. And for another month, I almost lost one of my best friends who joined me, and we were good friends, but we didn't get along as travelers, and so that was a real learning experience. And so, fortunately, we got back together, and we're still good friends. But you get, I enjoy the maximum freedom of independence that travel gives you, and you can change plans on a whim. You don't have to answer to anybody or ask permission to do anything. Um, and you're forced out of your comfort zone to meet strangers. If you have trouble meeting or talking to people, this is the way to force yourself to do it. Because uh, people ask me, well, doesn't that don't you get lonely traveling that way? And I said, no. I rarely get the feeling of loneliness when I travel. Um, I consider books and music to be my friends, uh, and that's where I go for solace when I'm traveling. I carry a Kindle for reading material, and of course, there's and I carry a phone for and a laptop computer, a Chromebook for music, and so I always have those by my side, and they really help, and so I think this loneliness is kind of self-indulgent, so I don't indulge in that, and I like the solitude. I think it also stimulates creativity, and I love to write. And I do a lot of writing on the road too. So uh, loneliness is not an issue with me, and I don't think it should be with other people. I mean, it is a real feeling, and I can understand it. I have, I can't say I've never felt lonely, but I may have already said that, but I uh, uh, I love the George Louis Borges quote that's up on the screen now. Loneliness does not worry me. Life is difficult enough putting up with yourself and your own habits, and so I take that to heart, and I think that's really true. Um, so let's see. Where do we go from here, Erica? There we go. Health. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about health. This is all part of the planning, and when you go before you go, you consult. You should consult with a doctor, if you're especially if you're in the senior category. And when you go to the doctor, here's my advice: don't ask the doctor for permission to go. Don't ask him or her if you need to, if you should be going, if you should be traveling at this age or anything like that. Instead, ask the doctor, how can you help me do what I want to do? And and from that point, if you can't get that kind of help, you should seek another doctor and get advice for your pre-existing conditions if you have them, and get learn what medications you need and whether you'll have problems getting them on the road. Get the vaccinations that you need. And in terms of vaccinations, uh, uh, I don't know if many of you are aware, but the Safeway supermarkets of all places, in their pharmacy section, has a special department for travelers who need vaccinations, and they're very knowledgeable and they're very helpful, and it's very and it's relatively inexpensive to get all the vaccinations that you need, and they will help you and tell you what you need and what you don't need, and I took advantage of that, and I highly recommend you consulting Safeway supermarkets in their pharmacy section, and of course Safeways are in most states, I believe, in the United States. Insurance is something you should have. I'm a proponent of having insurance as a traveler. I used to use World Nomads for the first 3 years. I paid them the premiums, and I was always upfront about the fact that I did not have a home address. I told them that a number of times. I filed my first claim after 3 years for a bout of bronchitis that I had in Thailand, and and then they wouldn't pay me because I said, you don't have a home residence. So that ended my relationship with World Nomads. We settled on the matter. They paid me back several months worth of premiums, and and it ended up being more money than what I would have gotten for the claim. So it was okay with me. And then I had to look around for a company that would accept me without a home address. I could only find one, and that was Safety Wing. Uh, and Safety Wing has a. They told me that because they have a subscription payment system, which is really just month to month, which is why they don't require a home residence. I don't quite understand it, but that's the way it was, and I've used that. I've been using them ever since. I haven't filed a claim with them, and so I really don't know what that process is going to be like. So I'll find out probably someday sooner or later. The only problem with Safety Wing is like a number of insurance companies, they don't cover um, uh, what you do in the United States for very long. Anyway, I mean, I came back to Hawaii recently, and you only get 15 days out of a 90-day period of coverage in the U.S. from Safety Wing, and so that's become a problem. Uh, and Sure My Trip, I'm told, is another good company for seniors who have a home base. Um, and I'm a proponent of wellness. After I had a series of problems with bronchitis, and so I got diagnosed with a rather serious illness, So now I really take care of myself. I changed my life significantly. Travel was more important than anything else. And so I stopped drinking alcohol. I drink lots of water. I don't smoke anymore. I work out. I eat well, sleep well, and I do everything I can to take care of myself. And I highly recommend that because you'll enjoy your travels more. I enjoy my travels much more now that I've changed my life in that manner uh, to to avoid illness and injury. So that's a big plus. In terms of money and finances, of course, you have to have some money. In my case, I had Social Security and a pension, so I was fairly comfortable in that sense. I didn't have much in terms of savings. I've spent most of my savings coming down from New York to Miami when I didn't know what I was doing as a traveler, and I was spending money hand over fist, staying in hotels and things. And uh, but you may have things that you can sell, vehicles or even homes or whatever. If you don't have savings accounts, you may have skills that you can use on the road to make money while you travel. But you got to think about this and don't accept major monetary commitments while you're traveling because that will curtail your experience significantly. In terms of credit cards or debit cards, I highly recommend the Charles Schwab Visa debit card. It's you can use that to get money out of ATMs. I've never had a problem anywhere I've gone in 4 years. Um, and the best part about it is there are absolutely no fees. The bank will charge you fees, but whatever they charge you in terms of fees, Schwab reimburses to you every month on their on your statement. So it's really a good deal. It's the Charles Schwab Visa debit card. I highly recommend it. Um, the what you should bring, it's kind of, these are your suggestions, but you're really going to have to play this by ear and figure that out by yourself. Clothes, toiletries. I carry a laptop computer because I like the large keyboard to write on. I also carry a phone, camera phone, and you put the local SIM cards, buy a local SIM card in every country, new country you go to. And with that, you can, uh, they're cheap and you can just change them in and out. It's not a problem and it's very convenient. Keep copies of your medical documents and the medicines that you need. If you have prescriptions, make sure you have copies of those. Make sure you have remote access to any important paperwork that you might need to carry. You should make copies of your you should make photographs or some kind of copy of your credit cards and your passport and things like that in case they're lost. At least you have a record of what you've had. Uh, you print out your emergency contacts and have them in your backpack or somewhere somebody might find them if you conk out somewhere on the road or get in a real bad accident or have a serious injury or whatever. Uh, and in terms of gear that you might need, for instance, like a sleeping bag, you may or may not need a sleeping bag. Depends on where you're going to stay. If you like to camp, yeah, take a sleeping bag. But for me, I stayed in Airbnbs most of the time, sometimes hostels, occasionally a hotel. Um, and so I didn't really need a sleeping bag, but I did eventually buy one for a trip for one of my great adventures, which was a trip down the Amazon River from Coca, Ecuador to Manaus, Brazil. And there it was by cargo boat, and on those cargo boats you sleep on the deck in a hammock. So I bought a sleeping bag, a light sleeping bag for that, and so you play those things by ear, and you don't try to get all these things before you go. You'll find that whatever you need is much cheaper in third world countries where you might travel, like Central, South America, and Southeast Asia. So that's That's my tip on that. Since I've been traveling, especially recently, and now that I'm getting even older all the time, ageism can be an important thing to look out for. And of course, that's the practice of discrimination against people only because of their age. And I find this in the insurance industry, and I've become much more interested in ageism, and I'm doing more research all the time. I've pretty much just begun to do this, but the insurers will charge you more the older you get, and then you get arbitrarily cut off at some predetermined age. For me, I'll be 69 next month, and when I become 70, they'll single safety wing will likely cut me off, and then I don't know where I'll go for insurance. And there's very little actuarial evidence that shows that seniors are any more expensive to insure than people at any other age group. So be careful of that. I don't know what to tell you to do except to question your insurers. When they do this, just ask them about it. You don't have to argue with them, but always ask them about it. I mean, we just need to begin to make this problem more a topic of discussion in the travel industry, because I believe it's wrong, and it's an ism, one of the, like racism or sexism, just as bad. So ageism is a problem for senior citizens. So what have I learned? Geez, it's never too late to start, uh, and it's a path to the fulfillment of your dreams. Just take care of yourself. Think about what you want to do, and the things that I've learned. It's life changing, and it's life changing in the sense for me that I learned to let things go, to express myself and to overcome fears. I did things on the road that I never thought I'd do before. Um, I people don't quite understand this next one, but I vowed to myself to sing, dance, laugh, and cry every day without reservation. And that sort of keeps me on an even emotional keel. And my advice on advice is always to think twice about it. You get advice, and it may or may not be good. Always get more than one opinion if you don't like the answer about the advice you ask about. So, some of my best adventures, some of the most enjoyable things I've done, have been in places where I was told not to go. So try going where they tell you not to go. There are precautions you need to take that you can make. You can see this kind of advice everywhere, but you don't flaunt your valuables. Dress down. Don't carry stuff that you can't afford to lose with you in areas where that may be questionable. Lots of things you can do like that to just to protect yourself. So that completes the presentation part. There's a lot more I could talk about. I could go on and on and on. But these are my contacts. Where you can always get in touch with me by email at davidhunterbishop@gmail.com. I have a website currently online, but it is in limbo. I don't pay for it anymore. I'm not happy with the program platform, the Weebly platform. I got sour on, so I stopped paying for that. The website is still up, so you can still see some of the things I've written over the past year or so, and I'm working on a new website, which I hope to be up soon, which will be called Real on the Road. And so that's the presentation, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have, Erica.
Wow, David. That was just incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Um, Unfortunately, since I was running the slides. I'm just gonna go look for the questions now and dig through this chat that seems to have been lighting up the entire time. We have a question from Jen, who I believe is Jen from Wisconsin, I think, was asking, did you consider any destinations subsequently reject them for any reason? So when you were like trying to pick your countries, did you think about something and then say, no, thanks?
I don't recall doing that. No, I did have a number of countries that I wanted to travel to, so I had choices. I didn't reject anything. With some of the countries I may have just put off. I'll go there later. But no, the answer to that is no. I haven't rejected. I'll go pretty much anywhere. I'm interested in going pretty much anywhere.
It seems like you also take into account very seriously like how much money you need to be in that country. It's not like you're going to Denmark or Sweden or Switzerland or anything like where the cost of living is very high. It seems like you're staying in the areas that are pretty cheap to live in, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
That's a very smart move. Very smart move.
I figure I can have just as good a time in a country that's inexpensive to be in as I can in a country that's expensive.
Exactly. Krista is asking, what's your best fun fact about the Liberty Bell or any of the Philadelphia landmarks?
The Liberty Bell. I did my senior thesis on the Liberty Bell, and the gist of that was that it was not even there in the building in Independence Hall on the 4th of July in 1776. It was not rung on that day. It was in very, very bad shape. The building was in bad shape. They had torn the cupola where the bell tower where it was stored. They had torn that down, and they moved the bell out of the building into some other place in Philadelphia, and so it wasn't even there. The Park Service doesn't like that story, and they sort of tamped that down and didn't want me playing that up too much. But that's the truth in my research, which was original research, and I was really pleased that they allowed me into the archives where I could look at the assembly minutes from the actual assembly minutes from the 18th century and figure out exactly what happened during that time. And it wasn't there. It didn't ring on the 4th of July.
We have another strange question. I'm gonna say it, but I don't know what I'm saying. So this is from Doug, and Doug says, during the midshipman cruise, you transitioned from being a polywog to a shellback. Did you meet King Neptune and his court? Do you
I
know
did.
Okay.
It was a very, very elaborate ceremony performed on the deck of the ship. And it was very, very bizarre. I won't go into the details except to say that I kissed the belly button of King Neptune, which was smeared with grease, after having crawled through some kitchen slop on the deck. So you don't want to hear any more details. But yes, he's absolutely right. And to just explain what a shellback I was a golden shellback for having crossed the equator at the international date line.
That is
I'm very proud of that.
That might be my favorite moment in all of the 77 TNN Zooms I've done so far. I'm so confused. Best question, Doug. Best question. Janet was saying, of course, you can also be a senior solo traveler at 55 if you have an early retirement pension. Okay, so Robert is asking, how long was the homestay Spanish course that you took, and how would you describe your ability to speak Spanish after it?
Well, like I said, I had some background in Spanish from high school, but that was very thin at that point. And but some of it started to come back during the course. I think I took 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, probably 6 weeks in Spanish classes there. And when I was done, I was able to. What happened, Erica?
It's okay.
Okay. When I was done, I was able to at least hold my own and you know, do the things I needed to do. You know, order food. You know, buy something. I could. You know, I was able to function as a traveler without assistance and you know even engage in a little bit of conversation. It wasn't. You know, my Spanish wasn't great, but that's where I was, and I'm still that way. I haven't progressed much from that, but I can get around and I can function as a traveler in Spanish.
Wonderful. Mary Ann is asking, how do you handle annual medical checkups, screenings, and prescription refills on the road?
Um, Checkups, I really haven't done that, but I do go. You know, I do go to the doctor when I need to, or I go to clinics. Actually, you know, in third world countries, they have lots of clinics, and you can get good medical care there, and you can get consultations with real doctors. And most of the doctors there are trained in you know in Europe or in the United States. So the medical care there is underrated. It's also very inexpensive compared to the United States, and I would just pay out of pocket for whatever I needed. What was it? What was the prescriptions? Uh,
Yeah,
most
prescriptions.
most drugs you'll find are not even don't even require a prescription in these countries, um, and so you know you can just get them over the counter, just pay and get them over the counter. Uh, and then what was the third part of that? I'm sorry. Is
That
there
was
anything?
it.
That was it. Yeah, prescriptions over the counter, very cheap, very inexpensive care, very good care. When I had that bout of bronchitis in Thailand, they almost put me in the hospital, but they didn't, and I got great care there, and
Yeah.
was able to get over that.
Actually, I would also add to that that there's a huge sector of medical tourism for seniors that you can actually go to other countries and get quality healthcare for much cheaper than you can in the US.
They
Now, I'm
do,
going to
yeah.
say this with a broad stroke, right? Like you have to do your own research on this,
Yeah.
but that is a big sector of like of traveling. If you're a senior and you need things, like they have actual like tours that will take you to different countries for much cheaper than you would end up paying in the US. um, and as somebody who's used doctors in multiple countries, I can definitely attest to them being really good and, you know, quality healthcare in other places where you're really scared. I mean, I've gone to doctors in all corners of, you know, villages and places and been treated very well. So, that shouldn't be that big of a problem. You just have to know what you're asking for and have somebody that speaks English and can translate with you. Um, Talik, who actually gave her own presentation on TNN. Hello, Talik. What was your experience with hostels as an older person, as they're usually filled with younger people?
I never had any problems. I didn't stay in too many hostels, but when I did, you know, there were, you know, there some, you know, a lot of young people would just ignore you, and that was fine with me. And but it was easy to make friends with young people there. You know, you just start talking, and you can make friends. You know, I have made did make friends that way that I still have people I've met in hostels. So. It was not I never had a bad experience that way. You know, like I said, so you know, some of the young people didn't want to have anything to do with you, but that's okay. That was fine with me. And hostels were good. I didn't have any problem with that.
Okay, great. Doug is asking, have you tried like talking to someone from AARP to counsel you for the senior travel insurance problem?
No, I haven't, but that's good advice. And a good friend of mine just offered that to me, the same advice to me this afternoon, because I have just started with this, and I'm, you know, beginning my outreach for information. And he said, yeah, that's a good idea, is to consult with AARP.
Mm-hmm. Amy has the question that I asked you the other day, David, but basically she's saying, can you use your son's address as your home base so that you can use Insure My Trip, which insures people over 70?
Um, I know a lot of people have suggested to me, use a friend or use one of your relatives in their home address. And I'm reluctant to do that because basically I believe it's insurance fraud. You're putting false information. You don't live there. And if the insurance company were to discover that while you're filing a claim, that just gives them a good reason to not honor the claim because you've given them false information about where you live.
Right.
Um, that's the way I feel about it. It's also and I also think of it as an imposition on the person that you're asking to do that. They now need to check for your mail and determine whether you want that or not, and then forward it to you if you need it. And your son may love you, but dealing with his mail all the time can be a pain in the neck.
I got that. Um, I have like my mom took care of my mail for like 6 years as I lived abroad. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I feel so bad for her. Okay, so Robert is asking, did you have a time frame in mind when you initially left on your journey?
I had no time frame in mind except that I was going to go as long as I could.
Love that answer. Um, Janet is asking, did you ever come back to the US during the 4 years that you were nomadic for any reason, or have you been away the entire time?
Occasionally, I think 2 times I came back to the U.S. for. I went back to New Jersey, my hometown. There were a couple of events there that I wanted to attend. One was my 50th high school reunion, and so. But yeah, not often. Very not often at all.
Okay. And then how do you see travel by a solo woman as being different than travel by a solo man, like when you're a senior? Do you know if there are any other issues that would come up that you've seen come up with people you've met?
Um, I don't know. I think women in general have a more difficult time traveling at any age. But I don't know. I can't speak for any specifics about issues that women may have as senior solo travelers.
Interesting. I always thought that women had an easier time traveling because people are seem to be more willing to help. Perspective. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Women get harassed all the time.
That's true.
That's what I have in mind is that women are often harassed in ways that are completely unwelcome.
That's true. That's true. Very true. All right. Heather is asking, what languages do you speak?
I speak English, some Spanish, and Pig Latin.
Awesome. Pig Latin. That's a lost language for sure.
A little
which
bit
which
of Hawaiian.
which country did you need Pig Latin for?
No, Pig Latin,
I know.
not Latin.
I'm just I'm just kidding. uh, Mike is asking, what is your monthly budget, and what would you consider like a reasonable amount of money to live abroad like you do? It may be more or
Uh,
less than you spend.
More or less the average amount of the senior's Social Security check, which is approximately $1,500 in the U.S. You can live on $1,500 quite easily in the countries that I've gone to. I'm very fortunate that I have an extra pension, which really gives me bonus money every month. So, but one Social Security check a month will allow you, you have to be careful, but you can, uh, uh, you can survive, and you can have a good life on the road with just that.
That's true. Jen is asking, are there mail services that have a US address that you can scan everything, or that can scan everything to you? Do you use a mail service is the question.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry
glad you
about that.
asked that. Yeah, I've used a mail forwarding. I have a mail forwarding address it's in Las Vegas, and it's called. I highly recommend it. They've been super the entire time. It's physicaladdress.com. And yeah, I can have things, if the bank wants to send me something, or somebody wants to send me something, they send it there. I give them that address, and they will scan it, they will look at it, forward it to me, or destroy it if I want them to. It's a complete service, and it's not expensive, and it works very, very well.
Amazing. And then Marianne is asking, where do you find monthly rentals or places to stay? Is that just Airbnb or where?
Yeah, primarily Airbnb is where I've stayed. And I would recommend, if you want to do that, stay for a week first, book a week. And
Mm,
if you like it, negotiate with the host to tell them, I really like it here, and I'd like to stay a month, and then you get the monthly rate, which is a lot cheaper. And so, and I do that because I do like to stay, longer in one place. And so I often do that. And then you can, even after 5 weeks, you can, renegotiate again. They're always willing to let you continue to stay in their Airbnb. But in that first week, you find out whether you like this place or not. You don't want to book a month and find out in the first few days that this place is, dirty or whatever.
it's
And
true. Well, we have some feedback from the solo female older traveler question. So I'm just going to read a little bit of that because I don't know if everyone's reading the chat, but Kathy says, as an older woman traveling for 2 years around the world, I found it was easier and I was harassed much less than when I was younger. And Christy is saying that I've traveled solo as a 62-year-old woman in Southeast Asia, Central America, and South America. No problems, lots of fun. So
good.
to each their own.
Go for it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like I said, perspective. And also, congratulations, you guys. Sounds incredible, your lives. If you would like to give a talk, email me. Okay, John is asking, he has had credit cards. Wait, he has had credit cards, driver's license, etc., sent overseas by his mail forwarder. Did it work or did it take a long time? Did you use DHL or FedEx to ensure it arrived?
I would often use, if I had something important that I needed to have forwarded, I would ask them to send it through DHL. I found that DHL is a very reliable service, and it's not cheap, but it's reliable. And that's, for some things, that's the most important thing. You need to get whatever. I had my stimulus check I had to have forwarded to me. They screwed up, and they had they wouldn't put it in directly into my account. So I had them send it to the mail forwarding address. I had the mail forwarding address send it to me in, where was I at the time? I think Mexico, I think. And yeah, whatever, wherever. And then, no, yeah, and then they sent it to me there, and then I had to send it to my bank. So that's where I used DHL, because once I got it in Mexico, I had to send the check to my bank, and and I used DHL for that. So it took a big chunk out of my stimulus check.
Wow. Whoops. David, this has been quite a night. I sort of want to close out saying how cool it is that you are really just living around the world and experiencing what you're experiencing. I mean, you just gave us the tip of the iceberg when you told us
Yes.
about that cargo ship and sleeping on a hammock on the deck in the Amazon. And,
I wish
like,
we had another hour. Yeah.
your life is very full, I'll say. And it's, a very exciting life for all of us who travel. We know that, like, compared to our lives at home, traveling is exciting. And so the fact that you get to do that all the time for the last 4 years in, the golden years of your life, that's just so incredible. And the fact that you can do it on seemingly or relatively so little money, where you think that it would cost you like thousands of dollars a month and you would need to have all this savings to be able to do that, you're doing it on your pension.
Yeah.
And I think that's really inspiring. And, for those of us who are seniors or not seniors and just want a change of pace, like, this is a really inspiring talk, because honestly, that's what I found. And that's why I lived abroad for a number of years, because my life in Connecticut and New York cost like 3 times the price of me living my dreams in any other country I was living in. So I encourage you to use this time while we're sitting, at home and listening to these talks, to really like start reeling about what you're going to do after COVID. Like, is this what you want to be doing? Or do you want to, go somewhere else for a while,
Mhm.
or leave a home base completely, or, completely relocate and live somewhere else for a year? Like, this is now the time for you to plan. Um, and so you got a million thank yous in the chat, David.